And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the ToolBelt, episode 221. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
TC Backer.
And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in on your lunch break and adapting to our new 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's actually 11 a.m. here in Dallas, Texas. We are currently attending the Windy Storm event, currently under new ownership by Josie Parks, and his team are doing a phenomenal job so far. Today, we have magnificent, probably one of the heaviest hitters in his space, Mike Claudio, host of the Big Stud podcast, owner, founder at WinRate Consulting, author, father, husband, coined the phrase win fast, win often. Mike, my friend, how you doing, brother?
This is always impressive, the level that you do things at. Like, just everything's just, I mean, I know it doesn't happen overnight. I know you've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, as somebody who's been doing content, you know, and podcasting for a while, it's impressive to see how much the details matter to you guys. And it's just props, man. It's not easy to do. People think it's easy. Look at like, oh, it's just easy. It's just like Ty Backer, it's just easy. He just does it. No, I released like my 500th podcast episode last week. And that ain't easy. And like seeing other people doing it at a really high level is just, I love watching people do really cool things at a really high level. So you should be proud of what you've done.
Thank you so much. You know, it's not as easy as we might make it look, and sometimes very nerve-wracking. We just got off the plane literally within hours ago from Utah. We were at an event. Diego, Dante, and Hunter Blue and their team rode to RoofCon. So we didn't really set much up, but Vic was chasing me around with a camera. I had the opportunity to speak there and crushed it. I had prayed in the morning that, you know, I just, as long as I can impact one person here, that they can go back to their family and, you know, their company, and then impact the lives of those that work for them, man, it's going to be a win. And I was kind of nervous doing it, believe it or not. Everyone never believes me. Nobody ever believes me when I tell them that, I get nervous. I still have a lot of passion for this, and I want to make sure I articulate the message well, and that they understand where I'm coming from, and where I've been, and how sincere I am about this. And I had never done, and I know this might sound crazy, but I've never done a PowerPoint presentation. And so I was a little nervous about that. And I had about 3, maybe 4 days to prepare for this. I didn't know we were going. And so I did it together. John helped me with it. We did a Canva slide, and it was super dope. And so, of course, I'm nervous and I can't see it. So I don't even remember which slide was next. But anyhow, so I kicked the crap out of myself thinking I didn't do very well. And I was stuttering a little bit. But I tell you what, there was a Q&A afterwards, and there was probably 5 to 10 contractors that came up to me and just asked me so many great questions. And I felt so fulfilled. And then even after the Q&A, about 5, 6 more contractors came up to me and spoke to them. I poured my heart out into them, and was still beating myself up a little bit. But then I started to realize, I was like, we 10X the mission. My mission, first thing in the morning when I prayed, I said, you know what? I just want to impact one person. And we impacted at least 15 people. But going back to what you were saying before I went down that rabbit hole a little bit was, it's not easy. I'm my own worst critic. And this isn't, I removed it being about me a long time ago. This is about, Mike coming on the show, and then everyone else listening. This is about everybody else. And I don't really care or get hemmed up too much on how many N's, ahs, F-bombs, all that stuff. I just really want to get the message out there. I want to impact somebody's life. And this is how we do it. As nerve-wracking as it is for us to set up a Smash Lab here quick in the lobby, as the union setting up back in the expo. They didn't let us in there yet. And they're putting carpet down and curtains and all that stuff. It's not easy, but there's a purpose. There's a why to it. This is our why. This is my why, not just my family. Yes, number one, first and foremost, they're everything. But secondarily, the impact is just like you are, Mike. I know that's why you do this. What you do for a living is that impact, that fulfillment that you feel after impacting somebody's life.
It'd be hard to keep up with it all if it wasn't worth it, and like seeing people's lives change and families changed, and breaking addictions, breaking the mental demons that a lot of people deal with. Like it's people look at so much at these events, and I think in the industry, I think all business, but I think contractors so with a lot of they just focus on top line revenue as the only measurement tool, right? And it's like it's so not the right measurement tool in the grand scheme of things. Like I've coached hundreds of companies now, and like the ones you think that got the most together are likely the most broken behind the scenes. They just found a way to outwork the problems, right? Like, and so like the top line revenue is not where winning really happens. And if you look at it from the grand scheme of life, I look at a lot of different factors and I try to determine what winning looks like. I mean, my talk at RoofCon last year, my keynote speech at RoofCon last year was around like dreaming selfishly and figuring out like who you want to be and how you want to operate. Because when you're chasing a single scoreboard like that, you drop the ball on so many other avenues and so many other aspects of life and business, and, from that perspective, it's one of those things where money's not the ultimate goal and you don't know that until you get it. It's the only thing you worry about when you don't have it, and you get it and you realize, well, that didn't actually do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's the hardest part to like help people understand when they're behind the ball of payroll and mortgage, and they don't have the house they want or the car they want or the employees they want or the companies they want or the vehicle, like all these things, money.
Mm-hmm.
Then you lose yourself on the journey. Like, I mean, you and I have talked about it. You lose yourself on that journey, and then you have to and at some point you have to break something to rebuild. And I try really hard as a coach to help people not have to like build something they have to completely break apart to rebuild later, because that is always more painful. You always let people down. You always cost you more money. And like you're doing it in the impact you're making and helping people shorten that failure gap so they don't have to end up like, breaking something in the future. And sometimes, something I heard somebody say once is when building a business, at some point, you're going to go bankrupt somehow. Bankrupt isn't only in money. Like, you go bankrupt emotionally, you go bankrupt spiritually, you go bankrupt in emotions, you go or relationships, you go bankrupt physically. Like, you lose everything in some aspect if you're not careful and paying attention to the whole picture. Money is the bankruptcy that most people talk about, but like, people lose relationships, marriages, relation with their kids. Their health and fitness is typically one of the ones that goes pretty quickly as well. People get bankrupt in those avenues. Self-confidence gets bankrupt, but they're like, oh, but I got a $10 million company. Cool. But like, you also hate going home. Like, that's not a win. It's like, what does winning look like to you is a really big part of, the impact you're making and the impact that I try to make.
No doubt. That's such a great topic. You touched on so many good points there. Self-esteem, confidence, bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is not just a monetary or financial bankruptcy. There's many other bankruptcies, spiritual bankruptcies. There's emotional bankruptcies. There's bottoms, right? There's emotional, spiritual bottoms that I think a lot of people have hit or in right at this moment, right? But don't really want to talk about it that much. And that's why this is such a great topic right now. About those things and how we pull ourselves out of that. And when things do break, like, how do we fix it? How do we respond? What was our reaction to that? And that's, why what you do is so important, for someone like me to be vulnerable. And whether you know this or not, and I wanted to touch on this, like, whether you know it or not, Mike, you've been a mentor of mine from a distance. I listened to your podcast and stuff like that, read your book. I don't even know what it was, like 3-4 years ago, you came out with a book. I read that. So you've played a big, huge part, of my success, and that's what's cool about what we do, right? So people can listen to our experiences, the vulnerabilities, the trials and tribulations that we've gone through. And I think once you get, getting back to, like, we don't get paid to do this. I don't get paid to be a podcaster. We don't get paid to travel.
It costs a lot of money to be a podcaster, man. Like,
yes, yeah, it really is. It's become, what has happened though is the money has become like the tool, has become the vehicle so we could actually do these things. And it definitely at times don't make financial sense to pack the gear up and come to win the storm. And it's not even an ego thing, because I had to check that, like, why are we doing this? Like, last year we went to every single event, and to see if we could do it. First and foremost, it was kind of maybe a pride thing, maybe not necessarily an ego thing. And then we've realized the impact that we had this year. People are asking us to come back this year because of the impact that we had. I'm getting more speaking engagements. People are asking us to come back and talk. And, the purpose of things, I apologize about the noise. Like I said,
that's all right. You're in the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. So I think a lot of people struggle with this, and I think a lot of people have a lot of value to bring, but they deal with the insecurities and like the personal doubts and the imposter syndrome. And was there a moment or a season for you? This is my podcast, but I'm curious. I think it's a topic we can talk about, when like you realize, like, oh, I actually do have value to bring people, and I need to start sharing that, because like, you've been in business for a really long time, decades, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in the world of construction for since pretty much 2012, so going over a decade. So like, was there a moment when you were like, I've learned enough lessons now that like people need to hear this, or I should impact people, or I'm able to impact people? Because then there's people, someone's gonna listen to this, just like you read my book. Someone's gonna like, I actually do have an impact I can make, right? And like, you and I can't impact everybody. Like, that's like the whole coaching world. They're all fighting over the same people. I'm abundance. There's so many people out there that need to be helped. I want to actually create more influencers in this space that are doing it right. So was there a moment, was there a season when you're like, oh, I actually can help people?
That's a great question, because I have suffered from insecurity and doubt and stuff like that. And I've come from a broken past, which was self-induced, self-inflicted. So that the insecurity was there from the beginning. Like, if you really knew who I was, you wouldn't want nothing to do with me, kind of imposter syndrome. And I struggled with that, but I think that has also helped me, push me to make sure that, like when you said earlier, like, we pay attention to every detail. That's why. Because
Yeah.
due to my insecurity, you know, of
It's a
failure,
gift and a curse, huh?
yeah, we have
Yeah.
to push ourselves double time, and to be able to surround myself around people who co-sign that with me, I guess, for lack of better terms. Vic is one of my biggest fans, who the man behind the lens. He would fall on a sword for me because he believes in the purpose. But I would say probably going back probably close to nine and a half, 10 years ago. My mom had lived with us and she had passed away, and she was huge in giving. She was a huge servant. Did everything for the community on many different levels: summer jubilees, exchange club, Santa's breakfasts, the dare program she brought to my school back when I was in elementary school. Pardon me. So when she passed, I felt like I needed to fill her shoes, right? I needed to pick the torch up. And that's kind of how I dealt with that grieving as well. Instead of like letting it manifest into like a negative in my life and fall back into the bottle and things like that, I kind of went on this journey, but I really didn't know where I was going. So about 6 years ago, I read the book Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek.
Yep, good book.
And that for me had really opened my eyes and solidified and crystallized for me, like actually like what my purpose was, what my mission's going to be. It's like I needed to read that book. It was such good. And then I actually read it backwards. I should have started with why, start with why, but I read Leaders Eat Last. Then I read Start with Why, and how he articulated what his purpose was, what his why was, like leading from behind, and showing the love to your team and giving them the credit when credit's due, and even sometimes when it's not due, and empowering them, encouraging them. I went on a mission, and I started to retain, attract people in our business, and those that the quality of people, it seemed like that started to come into my life when my mindset shifted. Like when that paradigm shift happened for me after reading that book, and I read it several times. It's one of those books I read at least once a year. And so then it was probably about 4 to 6 years ago I read that, and then I started to dive into other literature and podcast and things like that. And I started to gain confidence because I realized that my mess actually became my message. Okay. And I think I was able to inspire a lot of people, whether it was in recovery, people that I worked with. We attracted a lot of people in recovery to come work for us. We all believe kind of our core values, our personal core values, our professional core values all align very well. And I still struggle with doubt. That's why I have a coach today. I have a sponsor that I bounce ideas off of, because I have 100 ideas that I think are great ideas, but only usually one of them are a good idea at the time. But I think probably 4 years ago I really started. And I know it sounds crazy that it's only been like 4 years, and some people might be like, wow, that's a long time. But for me, it just seems like it was yesterday, where it was like, I started to come out of my shell. I started to come out of the shadows and was like, hey, my mess is now my message. I feel like I can really help you. And I've always helped people. For those of you that might not know, I've been in recovery for over a decade and a half. And so I've always had that, I got to give this thing away to keep it mentality. That's one of, my personal core values, that if I want to keep this thing, I have to give away, every single nugget that's ever been given to me so freely, and I have to give it away as freely as it was given to me.
No, it makes sense. I mean, that's a powerful reason, and obviously a long journey of messes to turn into a pretty powerful message, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it from that perspective, it built up momentum over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But I think more people need to appreciate those mistakes. I think they look at them as this badge of failure as opposed to a badge of honor. I talk to people a lot. I think you did this, but I think a lot of people struggle with this. Is like, you got to coach from the scars, not the wounds. That's a lesson I heard once. I heard someone say once, is like, coach and mentor from your scars, not your wounds. When you were in the starting battle of recovery, it was not the right time to start talking about recovery. You were still a wound, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now these messes, aka I would call those scars, are great. Hey, look, no, I did that. It was right here. Look, you see this right here? You see that? You see that scar? Don't do that. Okay, like this is what happened when you do that. And like because it's healed, you've emotionally disconnected from the wound, and it makes it easier to talk about it. And so, that's one of the best, I would say, depictions of how to and what to coach or mentor on. Is like teach from scars, not from wounds. And it helps people relate to it, and helps people like see that you've been through the battles, and can really make a bigger impact if people like they have the empathy to say, you get it because you have that scar. I see it. I can visualize it, and it can be really powerful for people.
For sure. And that's funny you say that, because I needed that experience. I needed to make those mistakes, and we talk about things like this all the time. It's called experience. I needed to make all of those mistakes in order to be who I am today. I needed to pick up every single drink. I needed to do every single drug. I needed to do all of those things. And thank God it wasn't horribly grimy stuff. I mean, I drank a lot, I partied a lot, and I realized that I was allergic to alcohol because every time I drank, I broke out in handcuffs. Right. So
that's good. I'm sure you've said that 100 times, but I've never heard that. That's good.
And along the way, and thank God I didn't burn myself out too bad, where, I'm still relatively intelligent and sharp, and I can retain and, become very knowledgeable at things that I'm very passionate at. Right. And I've become a pretty good business owner as well. So I've applied those things that I've learned, from my personal life. I apply them into my business life. And I think that's where a lot of my humility has come from, because I don't forget where I come from, Bum. And I think that's some of the two things here. I think some of the issue that we have, especially in this space, whether it's, the whole guru thing, is the lack of experience. That a lot of people that are coming into this space, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? To gain that knowledge. But I don't think necessarily they have the experience from having a broken background, or have been seasoned enough, or have gone through enough seasons in their lifetime to speak intelligently, whether it's financially, business, or on personal development, stuff like that. Because I see a lot of that, and I think that might have been one of the driving forces for me as well too. It's like, what good is it if I die with it all up here? What good is it doing to anyone else? And I try to share that message within our organizations, especially with the older guys that are coming through on the production side of things, that don't necessarily know how to coach because they're from the old school mentality. But it's like, listen, Denny, if you died today, what good would it be to the 5 youngsters that are under your management, if you're not, articulating how you do things to the best of your ability to them? Because this is the thing, we have to continuously, especially in a management position. I remember early on in my career, I wore 75 different hats. We talked about this earlier this morning with some of our team came down here with us today, some of our leadership team. And I love when we get together, because we just kind of nerd out on leadership. Like, leadership is my bag, man. I love it. I'm going to be continuously a student of leadership, and hopefully in that I can become a pretty good steward as well of leadership. But anyhow, we were talking about insecurity. This topic, it's almost like you were sitting in a room with us, Mike. But I lost my train of thought there for a second. Sorry, there's a lot going on here. Where the hell was I going with that? Leadership, yeah. But I was talking to Mike T, who was with us this morning, and we were talking about leadership, and we were talking about, and I'm going to probably totally go off track here a little, because I totally forgot what the hell I was talking about. That might be the 3-hour time zones that we've been in over the past 36 hours. And I'm not exaggerating, from East Coast to Utah to Texas now, plus the spring ahead time change thing here's got my throat, and the elevations and stuff of Utah and everything wonky with me anyhow. But we were talking about insecurity and being able to delegate responsibilities. I was wearing the 75 hats. And I was just holding on so tightly because I felt like nobody could do my job as good as I could do it. And a lot of that had to do with insecurity about myself. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think I had an issue with delegating stuff, but my issue is that I would take it back. I would take the win out of their sales, right? I'd be like, here, do this for me. But then I would watch exactly how they did it. Nope, you did it wrong. Nope, get out of the way. I'm going to do it. And a lot of that had to do with my self-esteem, my insecurity. And I wasn't being a very good leader. I thought I was, you know what I mean? Because we were getting shit done. And I talked down to you to make myself feel better because I was insecure about my abilities, my inabilities. So I find today that the more that I've worked on myself and the more that I'm okay with myself, the easier it is for me to trust another individual because one, I trust myself, right? I'm not so insecure. I feel like I should be in this room today because there was for the longest time going back to the original conversation here is that I didn't feel like I deserved or earned my right to be in the same room with Mike Claudio on the podcast today. You know, that would have been my fear. That would have held me back from growth personally, and it would have held the company back from growing as well because I kept bottlenecking the business. But until I got okay with me and got right with me, the 6 inches between my ears, that's what was broken, not everything else. As I'm screaming, go, 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 grow, 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 and wondering why we're not going anywhere, I had 3 fingers pointing back at me, and I use that analogy probably 5 times today. Is this something I've created?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the issues is like we were talking. Well, I think where the conversation where you lost track, we were talking about like gurus and coaches getting into the industry and like not really having the experience of where we were. Yeah. But you know, whether it's in a coaching environment or a leadership role, I think where a lot of people fail is they're very uncomfortable with what they don't know. And so you have to go in, you have to like, you almost pretend or force it because you don't want anybody to think that you don't know something. And I think that's when, like, you know, if you look at coaches or mentors, they really start to mess up when they try to coach out, like they kind of outpunt their coverage a little bit. You know, they're at a 3 and they're trying to coach someone at a 9, and like that just doesn't work. But that person, if you're at a 3, 1 and 2 need your help to get to where you're at, right? And so, but I think that happens in business too, where leaders, CEOs are maybe a 3 in a category, and they hire a 7, and then try to force them to do everything that the 3 knows, and they basically turn the 7 into a 4. Because they can't just say, I don't know, you're smarter than me, you tell me what this is supposed to look like, and then go do it. And that ability to separate from the emotion of what you might not know, and like, oh, a CEO is supposed to know everything. No, they're not. Like Steve Jobs does not know how to build an iPhone, right? Like he did not know how to do that. He had very good skill sets, right? And so but you see this all the time in small business, especially when like you were the technician that started it, is you hire people that are better than you and then pull them down to your level because you don't want to give up control of certain things. And all it came down to was the intentionality of, I don't know this. I hired you to know this. If you don't know this, I got to hire somebody else. Like I've had that conversation with people. I don't know how to do this. Stop asking me. I hired you to do this. And if you don't know how to do this, then I need to hire somebody else. And they'll go, no, I know. I just didn't know how you wanted it done. I don't know how to do this. So how I want it done is irrelevant. It's I'll underperform your level of doing whatever that thing is, right? You know, for me, it was learning P&L and balance sheets. Like I was not good at that. I hired people to teach me that, and now I'm better. I'm still not the expert, but I'm better. I think so many leaders get stuck in well, how do you want this done, boss? And they're like, well, then they tell them, but it's at a 3 level when that person was capable of a 7. And that's where businesses stagnate. It's where growth halts. It's where great employees turn into terrible employees. They feel stagnated in their role. And like, that's something you evolved through, obviously, and are now better at pointing all 5 fingers at everybody else. But overall, I think it's the ego and the insecurity that you feel like you're supposed to know everything. The minute you can accept you're not supposed to know everything in life gets better. Because you can walk into any room and get on any stage and get on any podcast, like, I don't know. And like, that's okay. Like I like you said earlier in this conversation, like you don't like using PowerPoint presentations. I don't either. I've started using them more lately because of I'm trying to build more of a consistent keynote speech, kind of that, so like using a presentation helps. But from the standpoint of like, I'm not afraid to get on stage and say something, and someone go, I think you're wrong. And I go, yeah, why? And they say this reason. I said, I actually agree with you. I am wrong. Thank you so much. And move on like nothing fucking happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people just do not have the ability to do that inside their own companies. And that stagnates so much growth and so much opportunity. And like that same person's complaining 3 years later, dude, no one just wants to work anymore, man. I can't find anybody who wants to do any work around here. No, they just didn't want to do it your shitty way. And you didn't give them permission to be creative and build it their own way. And like, that's just a fact
100%.
that most people struggle with in this, what I would consider small to medium business world. You don't get to large business holding on to everything. So like you even get like, I don't know what you consider a medium business, but I'd say like 25 million to like 500 million is probably a medium business. I don't know. I'm sure there's a metric out there. I don't know what it actually is, but like under 25 million is a small company, and so in that space, you can own more than you have to be there. Beyond that, you have to learn how to give up control. And you have to learn how to like be okay being bored sometimes and not jump into the business and just create problems so you have something to solve. Like those are major issues I see in small businesses when like that leader is struggling with that evolution to CEO.
100%. 100%. I agree with everything that you're saying, because unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I lived that nightmare, of that fear and that insecurity. And, as a entrepreneur or CEO, whatever title you want to use, right? Like our job is to inspire and motivate and create good ideas, and then be smart enough to know that you need to surround yourself around smarter people. And that your job, I actually recently changed my signature. I've been talking a lot about this. I just recently read a book by John Gordon. It's called The Energy Bus, and I can't speak highly enough about it. He talks about, CEOs and what his terminology of a CEO was, a chief energy officer. Great book. So I recently changed my signature to say that I'm the CEO, and I put underneath CEO, chief energy officer, because I'm the one that needs to bring the energy. I'm the one that needs to bring the positivity. I'm the one that needs to bring, that good creative momentum and keep that momentum. And once you find that momentum, and see, that's probably the hard part. Like those that are stuck in that I need to know everything and filled with fear because they know that they don't know everything. Okay. It's okay to say that I don't know anything, and that, I need help with this, or ask questions and empower your team to collectively think on how to build something out, whether it's a system, a process, or a project that you guys are working on together. I think that sense of ownership that you can give to your team, but how you articulate that I don't understand this, but I need your help with it, also matters too. When you're talking, but there's two words that I've learned over the years that has been probably two of the most powerful words that I've ever used was you decide. You decide. And what's cool about it is if you can get your business to a place where you're not the one just making all of the decisions anymore, that you've empowered your team, you've entrusted your team enough to make daily decisions, right? And of course, you got to practice. This is definitely something that I've had to practice at, and choosing the right people that can make those decisions. But when I started to find my replacements, not because I'm trying to retire, but on a micro level, my replacements for, the marketing, the AR, the invoicing, the service department, the costing department. So I found all these replacements for me. Right. And what's crazy is that I was so mediocre at everything anyhow, because I was spread so thin. But when I started to find my replacements and empower my team, now they have ownership in it. They're doing it so much better than I could possibly have ever done it. And it's because I was okay with me knowing that my limitation is this. These people can see around corners that I can't see around, and I need them to take on that responsibility and carry this load with me, carry that burden, and have ownership in this thing, because when they grow, the company grows. You know what I mean? I think when we think so short-sightedly, we paralyze the company, like you were talking about, Mike. We hold the company back. We hold our people back. We drag them down. We hire all these 8s and 9s and 10s, and here we are 4, because we decided to stay in the weeds, work on the business, stop working on ourselves, or maybe we never even worked on ourselves to become an 8, right, in our leadership. If there was a scale from 1 to 10, you need to be at least an 8. If you're going to be in a leadership position, you need to be on an 8, because if you can, the more that you work on yourself, and the more that you can learn to leverage your assets, which is your people are your assets. And if you can get out of the business, start working on yourself, start learning how to delegate and empower and entrust people to do the job and work in the company while you're working on, at a higher level, like kind of so you can see everything, dude, that's where the exponential growth comes in for them, because as they grow, the business grows. And I don't think a lot of people see it that way. And I think it's due to insecurity.
I think it's due to insecurity. I think they overvalue getting it wrong. Like, they're so afraid, like, if they hire somebody and it's the wrong hire, they train them and it's not, like, they're so afraid of it getting it wrong that they stagnate in any decision. Like, you got to hire slow and fire fast. Like, I've always said that. Like, there's a joke that goes around the WinRate ecosystem, because people ask me about a problem with an employee, it's always almost fire them. Like, it's if you're bringing it to my attention, it's already too late. Like, the problem's been going on for probably a long time that you don't even know about. And so we talk about fire fast went off, and like win fast went off, and is the tagline, but fire fast went off, and it's kind of a joke that goes around. But I think people do this. They hear us talking about it and think that, like, the first time they hire somebody, that's going to be the guy, and give up full control to that person. That is not what we're saying. Like, but there's that dichotomy of, like, how much permissions or how much control to give up, how much to keep. And I think that stagnates people, because, like, you're going to get it wrong. Like, you got to do what we just talked about. You have to be really good at recruiting. You have to be really good at hiring. You have to be really good at onboarding. You have to be really good at leadership. You have to be really good at accountability. You have to have objective measurement tools like KPIs and SOPs in order to hold people accountable. All that's the basic foundation necessary things to do what we just said. We made it sound simple. Yeah, hire people and then let them do stuff for you. That's not the whole story, right? Like, there's a lot more that goes into that you and I learned over time of getting it wrong. But no matter what you do, those first couple of hires, you're going to mess up. But the first couple of hires, you're going to mess up. No matter how long you plan, prepare, organize, you have to go through those lessons to learn what to look for and how to hire, and your leadership style and your skill sets. And the longer you wait, like, I would hire and fire 10 people between now and the end of the year just to learn how to. Because, like, that's part of business, man. Like, if you're afraid of hiring and firing people, you're stuck. You're just an employee. Like, you're a highly paid employee for the rest of your life. I would challenge everybody to try to hire and fire 5 people, 5 to 10 people by the end of the year. You're going to learn a lot in that process. Absolutely. And it doesn't, like, people look at, well, I don't want to hire someone for $80,000 and it not work out. Well, you're not really paying them $80,000. You're giving them, like, 2 to 3 months to test it out. It's costing you, like, maybe 12 grand to test it. Most people lose 12 grand. They don't even know it on stupid mistakes. But from this leadership, the conversation that we obviously delved into today, like, get really good at hiring and firing people by hiring and firing people. Like, there's no other way to do it.
100%. I agree with you 100% on hiring slow, whether it's the interviewing process to make sure that they fit the culture, and that's the deal right there. You can have the best, most expensive systems, processes put in place, KPIs. None of that matters if your culture is garbage. Okay, because they're not going to follow the systems, they're not going to follow the processes, they're just not going to do it if your culture sucks, right? And I learned that early on, because we didn't even have a system in the process. The system in the process we did, and it was by default. The system and process was here every day as they were sitting outside my office door waiting for me to tell them what to do. And not necessarily, and unfortunately, I trained them that way. I trained them to wait for me to go out there and tell them what to do. I trained them on you know, I think, you know, what to think, not necessarily how to think on their own, and make their own decisions throughout the course of the day. And of course, I wanted to bitch, like, why do you continuously keep knocking on my door? Leave me alone. Right. But not that the culture was crap, but that's just the culture that I had developed. And when we talk about culture, the culture isn't, you know, the huggy, grab assy, you know, take advantage of, because that's what happens, because I've been on that end of the spectrum too, where I didn't want to, you know, hurt anybody's feelings. And, you know, I want everybody to work hard for me. And so I'm not going to hold them accountable. I'm not going to put KPIs and in place and things like that. We don't need it. We shouldn't have that, you know, and what happens is people end up taking advantage of you when you do that. And, you know, nobody likes the word accountability, right? Accountability equals success. My terminology of accountability means success. If we're not holding each other accountable, and again, I'm pointing 3 fingers back at me too. You need to hold me accountable too. If I told you something, that we were going to do something, or this was the direction that we're going, right, you need to hold me accountable too. So I need to lead by example. If I'm not the first one there and the last one to leave, and I did that for years. We set the precedents. I'm not getting there any earlier than my team is today. I've just, now I think the earliest somebody gets to the office is like 4:30, but that was the type of culture, the mentality, the standard that we set. The standard is what the standard is. And when people come in, right, so we hire them slow. And when they're there for a while, they either level up or they get pushed out almost automatically. And it's like one of the first questions people ask me when they start is like, so when's the start time? And it's kind of like, you'll figure it out. Okay, well, I'll be here at 7:00. Okay, well, they'll get there at 7 a.m. They'll realize people have already been there for 2 hours. So the next thing you know, the next morning you see them, they come in, they're there at least a half hour earlier. And what happens is, when you develop a culture like that, everyone is there for each other. They're so good that the person sitting next to them has a job today. That individual is so good at their job that the person sitting next to them, or the person across the hallway, or the person upstairs in the conference room upstairs, they have a job today. So they have accountability for each other. And if I show up late today, it's not the anxiety that they're going to get scolded. It's the anxiety that they're letting their teammates down, because they can't complete their job until I have my job completed. And when you can get and form that kind of culture, right, then you grab the team, you get in a room, and it's like, okay, well, we need a system and a process over here. We need KPIs put in over here. And when you can get them to build it together, now they got ownership. So when the new person comes in and they're training them the new system, or the old system, or whatever that is, the KPIs and everything that's put into place, well, now they have ownership in it, because they built it. They're the ones training the new guy or gal that comes into the organization, and they have ownership in it. Like, this is something that we came up with. This wasn't how it has always been, but this is the way that we do it now. This is what we've developed. And this is the thing about systems. It's a living, breathing organism. It needs its haircut. Sometimes you got to clip its fingernails. Sometimes you got to scrap it and start all over, because what worked last year is not going to work this year. What worked last week isn't going to work this week, probably. But without having systems and processes and KPIs put in place, you don't know if it's a personnel issue. If you won't know if it's a system issue. Yep. Okay, without having that in place, does the system need tweaked? Does it need revamped? Is it an incompetency thing? Is it a lack of training thing? What is it? But without a system and process put in place, you can't identify where things went wrong.
People underestimate how valuable data is.
Right.
You know, it's one of the, I heard something once, and it was, the best thing you can have in any decision is clarity of the reality. Like, people get so overwhelmed by like the what ifs and the what mights and the lack of details and like the what's really happening, and not opinions and not emotions. It's like the best thing you can have in a decision is the clarity of the reality. Like, that's what, like, I do, like, as a coach, is like help, because I'm not emotionally attached to my clients' businesses. Like, I am, but I'm not. It's not my baby, right? So like, hey man, like, the reality is, if you don't fire this person, this is what's going to happen. The reality is, if you don't hire this person, this is what's going to happen. The reality is, if you don't, like, it's I can bring reality because I'm not emotionally attached to the lack of details or the backlog of context or anything else. And I think systems, processes, KPIs, data gives you the reality. Because I think actually, when someone's underperforming, right? Like it can be somewhat obvious, but what happens, I think a lot of times is people's overperformance or high energy or good personality can shield you from the reality of their underperformance. Like a bad attitude is easy to spot, right? A bad attitude is easy to spot, but a good attitude that still sucks is still very detrimental to the mission. And that's the hard one. That's where the objective data, because then it's not me versus you. It's not Mike's opinion versus Ty's opinion. It's Ty, your performance to this objective standard that we agreed upon. We can both agree you're underperforming that standard. Not I think and your opinion is, and let's argue about perspective. It's the data shows you're underperforming the objective standard. I want to help you get there. It's me and you versus the standard, not me versus you. Not my opinion and limited perspective to your opinion and full perspective, right? Because the first thing you do when you tell someone with a good personality that they're underperforming, they want to just describe to you everything they think you don't know about how hard they've been trying. It doesn't matter how hard they're trying. I hate to say that, but the reality is it matters how well they're living up to the standard of that role in the overall machine. And without documented SOPs and standards and KPIs, it is literally just your opinion versus theirs. And because they're a good person, you won't hold them accountable. You'll believe their excuses. You'll believe their reasons. You'll give in to their perspective because they're good people and they try really hard. They've been around for a while. That's why that objective, what I call third-party measurement tool, which is the SOP, which is the process, which is the KPI or the data or the activity or the CRM, that is what you need as a leader to hold people accountable. Without that, it's impossible. I believe it's impossible to hold an entire ship together with subjective standards. Objective standards, I believe, is the tool most leaders are missing when it comes to holding everybody in their ship to the standard, because someone with high revenue numbers on the sales team is going to get away with stuff someone with low revenue numbers isn't. That's still unacceptable to me. Because the lack of activity or standard setting in this part for that high performer right now will turn them into a bad performer later. Like, what happened to that guy? He was closing millions of dollars last year. Well, he wasn't doing the work. He had like 2 referral partners that fed him like guaranteed closed deals all year. He pissed one of them off because he didn't follow the process, and now he's underperforming. Like, I don't know what happened. I know what happened. Guy triggers the shit out of me, Todd.
I love it. That's so good. It's so good. Everything that you're touching, Mike, you are so smart. You're one of the probably smartest people, because like I said, I listen to you all the time, and just the stuff that you come up with is just on such a deeper level. Obviously, you have a lot of experience with dealing with entrepreneurs and staffing issues and things like that, and the confidence that you have, in your abilities. I think is a huge reflection on your success. There's no doubt about it. And why you run such a tight ship over there is because of the KPIs and the systems and processes that you put in place. But it's inspiring to me to listen to you. And I listened to, what was it? Your Monday morning motivated.
Yeah. Mike's Monday motivation.
Yes. And that I love that because it's a good, because Mondays usually suck, I think. And I don't know why I still think that at times. It's no different than a Sunday or a Friday. But to listen to that, but I think your last one was you must piss people off.
You have to piss, you're gonna have to piss some people off.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What inspired that?
I mean, this concept of holding people accountable, and like, we've all dealt with different things in our life, from a overvaluing other people's opinions on things, right? And one of the hardest lessons for most people to learn is the people that love you the most want you to be successful up to a point that they believe you deserve or are capable of. And when you go above that level, you piss some people off. And you're always going to piss off people that don't know you. this is, I think, another part of like building a personal brand and being online is like there's people in the fringes that think they're entitled to a full opinion. And if I don't react to it, I'm the asshole, right? Like everybody's got a fucking opinion. And so anytime you build something of meaning, there's going to be people that take a 30-second clip of you. It's like, you know, the best comparative analysis is like when you're in the grocery store yelling at your kids and someone wants to teach you how to parent and they have no fucking clue what led to that and no fucking clue what you've done. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm sorry. Apologize for my language. But I hate when people just like take a 30-second snapshot and think they have all the context they need to give me advice right now. And so like, but it happens in business all the time. And like some people are going to have an opinion based on a really small snapshot of your story. And when you don't react, respond the way they want you to, they get pissed off at you as if they were entitled to your attention and input. But what really where I think most people struggle in business and in life is exceeding the people they love, the people that love them's expectations for them. Because then, oh, you've changed. Oh, you too good for us now? Oh, you can't come to the barbecue, you can't come to the wedding anymore. Like this happened to me. This is happening to me right now. We throw a client appreciation event every year on the first Friday of December. I got invited to a cousin's wedding who's on that Saturday. And I said, I can't come. And they're like, but we gave you like 8 months notice. Can't you rearrange your schedule? No. Like, I'm sorry that like you as an employee can leave work and work doesn't stop. I don't have that luxury. In this specific event, it is the biggest event we throw every year. There'll be 150 people there. It's for all WinRate clients and employees. I can't miss that. I'm sorry. And if you don't like, but like I got like my aunt's mad at me now. My cousin's mad at me. And I'm just like, I'll send a check. What do you want from me? Like, I can't be there. And like, that's an example of like, if I carry that as like, I'm some sort of bad person, which a lot of people do, I'm the bad person for not going and prioritizing this thing. You're gonna hate life because you're gonna be doing that all the time. And by prioritizing things and reaching certain levels and becoming a certain version of yourself, like you're going to piss somebody off. If you carry that as you're the problem, you become the problem to yourself. Like you said, between the 6 inches in your head. And so like in business and in life and trying to accomplish something, when you are not giving up and like your track record shows I shouldn't be successful, but you are anyway, you remind people that they gave up. You remind people that they thought they weren't good enough, so you must not be good enough. You remind people that like, oh, like that version of you that they don't know you changed, right? It's one of the biggest issues I think when you look at like your long-term friendships. They don't change, but you do, but then somehow you're better than them. You're not. You're just out-evolved them, right? And like that's where like the new people, like the person who just met me today, the person on this live podcast that learned about me today is like, man, Mike really knows his shit. This dude's awesome. There's somebody I failed 20 years ago that's like, Mike's a piece of shit. Mike shouldn't be leading anybody. Well, bitch, I evolved. I changed. I'm sorry you weren't a part of every step of that journey, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And people cannot conceptualize that. People who have not evolved cannot believe that you've evolved enough to deserve the thing that you have. So you must have lied, cheated, or steal to get it. And now they have to punish you because no one else is going to. So I have to punish Mike because he doesn't deserve this. Fuck off.
I love that. I love that. And as, when you were talking, I counted probably at least 5 relationships over the years where I don't speak to those people anymore because whether it was envy or jealousy or something, or they felt like I didn't deserve what good things were happening. And it's just funny how people's mindsets, it's like they're the ones rooting you on when you're down here. You know what I mean? But then when you actually get up there, it's like all of a sudden it's kind of like now you're the asshole because you can't be at the barbecue like you had mentioned or go on vacation. There was a couple that we used to hang out with all the time, and like something happened. Like I felt like we were growing at the same time together, but then all of a sudden something changed, and I don't think it was us. I mean, other than the fact that Jana and I, we kept growing and we were doing the Fearless 44 and stuff like that. And that really helped propel us, you know what I mean? That accountability of staying consistent, daily and setting goals. And we accomplished a lot in those 44 days. And then we did another one, and then we did another one. We usually do one or two a year. And it's like those self-improved things that improvements that we do, people, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with envy and of them watching you succeed. And it's so crazy because, I try not to, and I might have been guilty of that a little bit too. Especially when I was younger, if somebody had a car or something that, I wouldn't be that guy like, hey, congratulations. But I think at having lost everything, and have found that humility, that humbleness, and want to see people win. Like, listen, dude, like if I'm riding first class, my team's riding first class. You know what I mean? If I have to ride coach, guess what? We're all riding coach.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
that's where my mindset is today. I want to see everybody win exponentially. We talk about this all the time. When people come into our organization and they're here for a while, they because we're really big into self-improvement, and growing as an individual. So when you come into our organization, you're going to be different. You're going to change. You're going to be different. Your habits are going to change, whether it's the time you get up in the morning or how you treat other people, and your work ethic. Like, these things change, and core values. A lot of people don't even know what core values are. Okay. Or let alone a personal core value. But to have a business, have core values. And let's say they don't stay. Our retainage is pretty good. But let's say they do move on. I guarantee it that when they come through the organization and they leave, they're a different person. And the only thing that I can hope for is that they can go out, make $100 million and impact 1 billion people with what they have learned from coming through our organization, and have that impact. That might sting, that might burn. And I think that's the thing about legacy. When you get to that level, it's like there's a catch-22 with legacy. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the credit for half the things that we may have impacted somebody's life with. And now we don't even know half the people that might even watch this podcast today that may be impacted by listening to it. But you have to be okay with that. You have to want to do this to just want to be able to inspire people. And when you can have that influence on other people's lives and not really give two shits about taking the credit for. And we were talking about this conversation earlier today, and I think as the older I get and the more mature, and I think it really comes down to maturity, right? Like, and humility. I can't speak enough on humility, and finding your purpose in life, right? Like, if, I heard people say, like, what is my purpose in life? The purpose in a nutshell is that we're here to serve. And if it's anything outside of serving other people, then it's just selfishness, right? And I'd like to talk about, legacy a good bit, helping other people, having an impact, coming to realize, we talked about the money thing earlier. Money is only like the vehicle that has given us the ability to do these things. Being an entrepreneur, it has to be more than the money, right? The ones that keep fighting are driven by something much more than money. We go through way entirely too much bullshit. You know what I mean? We got to get clear on our purpose. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be,
So that's probably that's a whole nother podcast episode, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Legacy and purpose. It's a whole nother episode. I hate to cut this short, but we're a little past the hour and I need to get going to my next meeting.
Oh, cool. I can't even see half the shit that we're doing right now. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, man. That was awesome. And
thank you for coming on and putting up with my my airheadedness today.
No, man, it's all good. Look, enjoy the rest of your trip. Hopefully you'll continue to make the impact there that you hope to. And looking forward to seeing you at the next one, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys have a good day. Thank you for watching. Make sure you tune in next week for episode 222. Don't forget to like, love, and subscribe to our Spotify, our YouTube, and our Apple channel. Talk to you guys next week for episode 222.